Snow White. Once upon a time, a lovely queen gave birth to a beautiful baby girl called Snow White. Sadly, when Snow White was still very young, the queen died. After some time, the king remarried, but the new queen was wicked and very jealous of Snow White. As the years passed, Snow White grew very beautiful, and a handsome prince who was riding past the castle saw Snow White and immediately fell in love with her. But this only angered the queen more, for the queen was beautiful as well, and every day she would ask her magic mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" "You are the fairest in the entire kingdom, my queen," replied the mirror, and she was satisfied, as she knew the mirror only spoke the truth. This was the way for many years, until Snow White's 18th birthday, and when the queen asked her usual question, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" "You are fair, my queen, yet fairer still is Snow White. She is fairest of them all," replied the magic mirror. Green with envy and spitting with rage, the evil queen could not bear to look at Snow White any longer. So she ordered her huntsman to take Snow White into the forest and kill her. The very next day, when Snow White was on her morning walk through the forest, the huntsman was set to carry out his task. Just as he was about to kill her, Snow White looked into his eyes, and he knew he could not kill her, for she was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. Instead, the huntsman told Snow White to run away and never to return. Snow White ran far into the forest. She ran until she was too tired to take another step. Alone and scared, she saw a little cottage and stopped to rest. Once inside, she saw that everything was perfectly clean and tidy. The tiny table was set with 7 little plates, 7 little knives, forks and spoons, and 7 little mugs. There were 7 neatly made beds all in a row. Snow White found food and water, and she was so tired that she laid on a little bed and fell asleep. The cottage belonged to 7 dwarfs, and it was nightfall when they returned home. They marched in one by one, whistling a happy tune. Their names were Happy, Bashful, Grumpy, Doc, Dopey, Sneezy, and Sleepy, and every day they would head into the mountains to search for diamonds. "Oh, heavens!" they cried when they saw Snow White sleeping in one of their beds. "What a beautiful child!" So the 7 dwarfs squeezed into 6 beds and let Snow White sleep until morning. Morning came, and Snow White explained the story to the 7 dwarfs. "Please, may I stay here with you for a while?" asked Snow White. The 7 dwarfs were all very sad for her, and agreed to let her stay as long as she liked. In return, every morning, when they would go into the mountains to search for diamonds, Snow White would clean the cottage and cook them a hearty dinner when they returned. One day, happy that Snow White was gone, the evil queen went over to her magic mirror and asked once again, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" "You are fair, my queen, yet fairer still is Snow White. She is the fairest of them all," replied the magic mirror. The wicked queen could not believe her ears, and no matter how many times she asked the question, the answer remained the same. "How can this be?" screamed the queen. When the wicked queen learned that the huntsman did not kill Snow White, she exploded in anger and vowed to find Snow White and kill her. For many days the queen searched for Snow White, until one day she found the little cottage in the forest. Disguised as a sweet old lady, she knocked softly on the door, saying, "Lovely fresh fruits, lovely fresh fruits." Snow White did not recognize her evil stepmother, and thought that the fruits would be very nice for the 7 dwarfs when they came home. So she opened the door. The evil queen insisted that Snow White try one of her lovely red apples. Oh, they looked so delicious that Snow White couldn't resist. But the apple was full of poison, and Snow White fell to the floor. The evil queen laughed and ran from the forest. When the dwarfs returned, they were so upset to see their beautiful Snow White dead on the floor that they gently laid her in a glass coffin and sat with her night and day. But someone else was looking for Snow White. It was the handsome prince who had fallen in love with her. When the prince finally found her in her glass coffin, he would not believe that Snow White was dead, but that she would be awakened with true love's kiss. So the handsome prince bent to kiss her. As he did, Snow White slowly opened her eyes, and the prince lifted her into his arms. When the king learned what the evil queen had done, he banished her from his kingdom forever. Snow White and her handsome prince were married, and they all lived happily ever after.